radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 4, recorded on Monday, September 7th from Milwaukee.
Happy Labor Day.
It's Labor Day! Well, at least when we're recording it. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we'll be discussing why progressives should vote for Joe Biden. But first, the headlines.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Fake, disgusting news.
Up first in headlines, The Princess Bride is coming to Wisconsin.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Jason, how do you feel about that?
Inconceivable.
The Wisconsin Democratic Party is actually hosting a virtual live-streamed event.
Yes, they're going to do a live stream reading of the script of Princess Bride. No word on who's going to be Andre the Giant.
Who do you think is going to be?
I don't know. It says special guests. Someone special, I would guess.
Beautiful. The event is a part of a fundraising effort to help raise money for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin for the Biden and Harris campaign, as well as other local races in the state. The event has garnered wide national attention, including, and absolutely my favorite, Ted Cruz.
Princess Bride superfan.
Who is
Ted
the
Cruz.
most triggered right now because of this.
Yeah, he's very upset.
Did you see what he wrote about it?
Yeah, his tweet. It was referencing the torture scene.
Right. So Ted Cruz basically is really upset about the whole thing, got his whole panties in a wad. And thanks to him, the event has now reached skyrocketing fundraising numbers. Actually, Ben Wickler, the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, tweeted a couple of days ago, "I never thought I'd have to write this, but I'd like to personally thank Ted Cruz for helping drive the biggest fundraising day of the cycle for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin." Thank you so much, Ted. We really appreciate it.
What's his real name? It's not Ted. It's like something too ethnic. Thanks, Raphael.
Where'd you get Ted from Raphael?
You know, racism.
You're right.
If you donate to the Wisconsin Democratic Party, you'll get an invite to the script reading on September 13th at 6 p.m. Central Time.
We'll also be including the link in the show notes so you can go and participate. Go do that and go
Have a good time.
have a good time.
Did you know that soldiers who died during World War I are suckers and losers?
What hardcore lib told you that?
The President Donald Trump.
What?
According to an Atlantic article, in a 2018 visit to France to celebrate the end of World War I, and this is the same trip where he allegedly took art pieces from the American embassy in France as well, which all turned out to be either duplicates or fakes. Trump was supposed to visit a graveyard along with other world leaders. It was raining. He couldn't fly in the helicopter. The trip was canceled for him. According to reports, he said, "Why should I visit the grave of those soldiers who died? They're all suckers and losers."
And with this bombshell article, and let's be real here, like this is a bombshell piece. If this was any other president in any other time in history, this would have been the biggest news for the next 2 months.
Imagine if it was Clinton. How many times did you hear he was a draft dodger?
Well,
And Trump had the same. He didn't go to Canada because he's rich. He didn't have to. He just had his family doctor tell everybody he had bone spurs.
Well, and this is going to be a common theme of this show apparently, do the Barack Obama test. If Barack Obama was caught saying these things, what would conservatives have done with this type of stuff? They would have lost their minds.
It certainly doesn't surprise me. He's called John McCain a loser before for being
Right.
a POW. He has vehemently denied these reports, but every news outlet has seemed to confirm that he said this, including his favorite.
Well, not anymore at least. So AP, New York Times, and Fox News all have corroborated the story with their own sources. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin was the correspondent that first confirmed it for the network. And of course, because we have a toddler in chief right now, Trump immediately started attacking Jennifer Griffin and Fox News by spreading more supposedly fake news. Trump recently tweeted, "Jennifer Griffin of Fox News did not confirm the most salacious part of Atlantic's story." And then he linked to a Breitbart article, which, Jesus Christ, if Fox News is not right-wing enough for our president, where are we right now? But continuing on, he goes on about the Breitbart article, all refuted by many witnesses, not true. Jennifer Griffin should be fired for this kind of reporting, not even called us for comment. At Fox News is gone.
Uh-oh, he just canceled Fox News, Joe. Cancel culture.
Oh my God. Jason, what's happening?
And he literally is trying to get her fired from her job. Isn't that?
He's literally trying to get her fired for her job. Luckily, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but other Fox News correspondents are standing up to the president, which is a weird thing to say.
She's one of the better reporters that they have.
Right. And Jennifer Griffin came out herself saying that her witnesses were, quote unquote, unimpeachable.
Yeah, they seem to be like, well, it's unnamed sources. It's not that the reporters reporting this don't know who they are.
Well, it's not even just that, but conspiracy theorists and, well, Trumpers in this case, will use unnamed sources or anonymous sources as a way of saying that they're just made up. And I mean, that's a common talking point right now is that, well, yeah, every time the media just wants to make something up, they just want to add anonymous sources to it. That's not how journalism works. Just because something's anonymously sourced does not mean that it's just made up. They still have to vet all their sources. They just don't want to put a name to it. Now, granted, would a named source be more credible? Of course it would.
They'd immediately be fired, though.
Right.
Trump has, in the past, retaliated against people that have come out in stories that were negative to him and their families.
Yep.
So, of course, if you were reporting that you heard Donald Trump say that dead U.S. soldiers were suckers and losers, you wouldn't want your name attached to that. You know he's going to blow up exactly how he is. He's trying to get the Fox reporter fired just for doing her job.
Exactly. And I guess I still can't get over the fact that he's pushing Breitbart News over Fox News at this point.
Well, anybody who side with him. I mean,
Right.
their whole thing is, well, she didn't corroborate the worst statement, which is literally the sentence that he called them suckers and losers. She does corroborate that he said the soldiers who went to Vietnam were all suckers while he stayed home with bone spurs.
And let's be real here. Just because there is this bombshell story, there still is valid criticism that I think that can be made. I think, first off, we need name sources. I can't stand the fact that people are still not putting their names to it. I get it, but it still pisses me off. And I mean, there are some people like John Bolton who were refuting this, or who were trying to refute the story, saying that, he didn't hear anything himself when he was on that trip. We still need to have a good, healthy dose of skepticism along with this as well. And that's okay. But when you have multiple news sources corroborating it all with their own different types of sources, this is something that has to be taken seriously. And I don't know why conservatives aren't taking it seriously. I mean, okay, that's true. I know
They're
why.
taking their lead
I know
from
why
the
they're
president.
not taking it seriously.
They just deny everything and
Right.
lie. I don't even care about named sources. The Watergate story was all anonymous sources.
Yep. Watergate brought down Nixon.
When you have a president who will retaliate with all of the power he has, you're not going to come forward and say, especially when you saw what happened during the impeachment investigation.
Right. So we'll keep you up to date about what's going on with this. I honestly don't expect much to happen.
Nothing.
I mean,
Just like every other Trump scandal.
if this is the biggest blowback he's getting right now, and I mean, there are some organizations that are calling him out for it. I did see some new creations of Republicans against Trump starting to get some more
Traction.
some more traction and momentum because of this. I saw Veterans Against Trump groups starting to form now, which I think is really good.
Should have always been there. He's cutting Medicare benefits for soldiers.
I mean, you're right.
Medical benefits for
Right.
soldiers.
So I don't expect much more to happen with this, but I mean, if something else happens, we'll keep you on the loop.
So this past week, there was a CDC report that came out saying that 94% of all COVID deaths had an underlying condition. Does this mean that COVID is not as bad as everyone was saying?
Yes. Did I win? Where's my Republican money?
According to Herman Cain, who died of the coronavirus, it's all a lie, and it's not nearly as dangerous as we were all told. From the grave, tweeting.
But this is the newest COVID conspiracy. You have people who are misinterpreting a recent CDC morbidity report concerning all the deaths that are related to COVID, saying that 6% of all deaths are due to COVID alone, but that the rest of 94% of COVID-related deaths are due to comorbidities. That does not mean that only 6% of recorded COVID deaths are actually because of COVID.
We always knew this, right? Wasn't this always...
Right. This is nothing new. This is exactly what we were saying from the get-go. If you are already susceptible to illness and you are already have pre-existing conditions, you are going to be at a greater risk for death because of COVID. That's exactly what we were saying. And that's exactly what the CDC was saying when this was all happening months ago.
Age is a comorbidity, obesity.
Diabetes, heart arrhythmia, right? Like one of my favorite examples, I saw a tweet from a doctor saying, I have diabetes, and if I get mauled by a bear, and if I die due to unstable blood sugar on the operating table, the bear still killed me.
Again, this is no different than the flu. We have these same comorbidity rates with any illness, but you still attribute those deaths to the illness, not to the comorbidity. So if 10,000 people a year die from the flu, we don't say, well, only 6% of those were perfectly healthy people that died because of the flu 100%, and 94% had other factors. So, the flu is nothing. It's no big deal. Those numbers are still what they are. Still 180,000 plus people that died due to COVID.
Yeah. And that would most likely still be here today, right? I mean, there would still be some people of that 180,000 who would have died because of something else, potentially, right? There's always that chance.
Statistically, sure.
Right, there's always that chance. But because of COVID, they are not here today. And what makes me really mad about this whole thing is that I have people who are claiming that they're intellectuals and skeptics are falling for this. This is like 5-minute Google stuff. I don't understand it. How is this fooling people? And on top of that, why are we trying to say like, oh, now all of a sudden we trust the CDC and their numbers, even though they didn't trust the CDC's numbers before?
It's called cherry picking.
The whole logic doesn't make, I'm getting angry.
I never like you when you're angry.
Yeah, me neither. I don't go Hulk. I just get really sad.
Depression.
Right.
It's the real monster.
Left wing. We're going left wing all the way.
Let's talk about something uplifting.
I'm ready. What is it?
Why progressives should vote for Joe Biden.
I'm out. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. It's a common trope right now where you're seeing lots of progressives and leftists saying that they're refusing to vote for Biden out of saltiness, or they refuse to give the establishment their vote or to any of their support. They think Biden is just as bad as Trump, and that's all nonsense. And I hate it, and it's stupid. And we're going to tell you why it's stupid.
Let's start with the narrative that Bernie could have won the Democratic nomination if not for that snake Elizabeth Warren and those meddling kids Buttigieg and Klobuchar.
That the DNC rigged the election again, supposedly.
So if we look at the Real Clear Politics polling averages, and they have every day from December 9th, 2018 until April 7th, 2020, Biden had the lead from the beginning.
A strong lead, a very strong lead.
Yeah, over everyone, averaging 28% to Bernie Sanders' 20%. Bernie Sanders led only when he won kind of Iowa, and that was from February 10th, 2020 to March 4th. Less than a month he was in the lead. And Elizabeth Warren actually led for one day on October 8th of 2019, when she had 26.6% of the vote. Biden had 26.4%, so she had a 0.2% lead, and Sanders was at 14.6%. She was gaining around that time, around late 2019. She peaked in October and then bottomed out in early December.
And this is kind of where Warren had her hotspot of being known as the more capable Bernie Sanders, right? Yeah. Where she had almost all of the good progressive policies that Bernie stood for, but wasn't so hell-bent on not negotiating.
And everybody wasn't sure about Bernie's health after the heart attack.
Right. And she hit several other candidates pretty darn hard in the debates. I remember her owning John Delaney in one of the debates where she had her like, why run for president if you're not going to stand for anything line, which I thought was really good. And she was hitting Joe Biden pretty hard as well. She didn't really attack Bernie Sanders too much, but once she started gaining that lead and became the front runner, everyone started attacking Elizabeth Warren and trying to lump her in with Bernie for Medicare for All. Once she said that she wanted to do a more moderate approach to Medicare for All, trying to ramp it up over the 4 years, that's where she really started to bomb out.
Yeah, she stayed around 14% pretty much the entire time after December of 2019.
Right.
And the person to gain the most during that time was not Bernie Sanders, even though he was coming up. He was actually coming up before she started to bottom out. He was on the rise. But the person that actually gained the most in percentage of vote was actually Pete Buttigieg. So it seemed like a lot of Warren support ended up going to him when she was losing ground.
And there was a lot of fight because I think the idea of Warren and Buttigieg is that a lot of people really liked Buttigieg because he was younger and different and he had a really good posture or a really good composure to him. Warren was like very close to all of it the entire time, where she was either really close to Pete Buttigieg, really close to Bernie Sanders, but she was never anyone's first pick, if you remember that correctly. She was always like a very close second. So that's where she usually was, and that's kind of where she ended up staying around, and I think that's where you're trying to get at as well.
A lot of people like to attribute the time when the story came out where Elizabeth Warren claims Bernie Sanders said a woman couldn't beat Trump when they had a closed-door meeting in 2018. This story broke on January 13th of 2020. She had already bottomed out to 14%. It didn't affect her campaign at all. She didn't go up or down. And Bernie Sanders was already steadily climbing around this time, and it didn't affect his campaign one way or the other either. So to say that's what killed her campaign would be a mistake. To say that it hurt his campaign at all would also be a mistake.
It caused a lot of drama between, let's say, the supposed factions, right?
Oh, yeah. It made the fan bases hate each other.
Oh, yeah, it was bad.
There's a lot of Twitter snakes being sent out.
Right. As far as actual polling numbers goes, it didn't really move much one way in either direction.
Yeah, the average public didn't seem to take much notice.
No.
So the big thing for me comes when we're talking South Carolina. So up until this point, Bernie had been doing well in all of the primaries. He was at the top. He was rising.
Very fast, like rapidly rising, right?
We were literally saying if he wins one or two more states, he's going to be the nominee. Nobody's going to be able to catch him.
Right.
They're not going to be able to organize fast enough. He's running away with this.
Right.
It's over before it even began.
Well, and I remember multiple news outlets saying this was Bernie's race to lose because he had such a domineering lead.
On February 26th, South Carolina Representative Jim Clyburn endorsed Joe Biden. He also endorsed Clinton and Barack Obama.
And one thing you need to realize is in South Carolina, Jim Clyburn's endorsements are basically law. they will give...
Kingmaker, I believe, is what he's been called.
Yeah. So, I mean, whoever Jim endorses, South Carolina will usually get behind because they have a great deal of respect and trust for Representative Clyburn. We need to remember that South Carolina was Biden's main focus for a state, where he was getting his butt repeatedly handed to him because the constituency of those previous states were mostly white and mostly more involved in politics as opposed to other states. However, South Carolina is much more diverse, not as politically engaged, and Biden's appeal was to black voters, which is what a lot of the South Carolina primary is. Even so much, I mean, that even Kamala Harris couldn't win over the black voters of South Carolina, but they loved Joe Biden. So once Jim Clyburn gave him the official endorsement, it was over.
Yeah, he's seen, again, up until this point by everyone as the candidate that can beat Trump. He's the safe bet. Bernie's a socialist. That's a gamble. Everyone wanted Biden to be the candidate, seemingly. And South Carolina, the results, Biden won 48.4%. The next closest, Bernie, was 19.9, more than double his vote total. Warren was all the way down at 7.1%.
And this was the make or break for Biden, where if right before the South Carolina primary, like many news outlets and pollsters were saying, if Biden doesn't win by a lot, he can basically kiss any chance of being the president goodbye. He had to win by a significant margin to do anything with his primary. And he did.
Yeah.
It shocked the hell out of me.
Yeah, this showed everyone that Biden really can be the front runner. He can be what everyone thought before this race began. He still is that guy. And sure enough, March 1st, Buttigieg drops out. March 2nd, Klobuchar drops out. They are rallying the moderates, the middle of the party, the corporate Democrats, if you will, around a single candidate. And that's the majority of the Democratic voters.
Right.
As much as we don't want to accept that, as more progressives, we love Bernie's ideas better. We loved the socialist programs. The majority of the country, the majority of the Democratic voters are more centrist. And you give them the option of having that safe, cozy, capitalist blanket, they're going to take it.
Well, you also have to assume that the vast majority of the electorate is not at all aware of what these politicians actually stand for, right?
They just know the media talking points.
Right, exactly.
And it's crazy Bernie, the socialist.
Right.
Communist.
But even then, like even in the primaries, you had people who were saying they wanted Pete Buttigieg, and if they didn't want Buttigieg, they wanted Bernie. Not completely opposite, but
kind
pretty
of a
far
populist
apart.
take.
Right. I mean,
those are the people that then go to Trump after.
I mean, then you also had people who were in the what's her name? The Hawaii rep,
Tulsi
Gabbard. Who they're throwing Tulsi Gabbard in there too. I'm like, get out of here. Then Super Tuesday comes, March 3rd. Biden wins 10 states. Alabama, Arkansas, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. Bloomberg won American Samoa, which
I think maybe he just bought it. Did he just buy the island?
Right, he just bought everyone's vote. Sanders wins 4 states, California, which was a pretty huge win for him, Colorado, Utah, and Vermont.
Which is where he's from.
And even then, I think it wasn't a landslide, so I think it was closer than what we expected for that state too, if I remember correctly.
Biden's margin over Sanders was larger than Warren's total in 5 of those states. Alabama, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas, meaning if she had dropped out and literally every person who was going to vote for her instead voted for Bernie, he still would have lost. In Oklahoma, there was a 0.1 differential, so he would have needed 100% of those votes to be able to win. Even with those voters, even if you think every single Warren voter would vote Bernie if she wasn't in the race, it still wouldn't have made the difference for him.
No, it just wouldn't have.
And studies show that that's not even the case. Those two groups don't really overlap. As we said, the two fan bases or the voter bases hated each other at this point. They were constantly fighting online. I mean, I know Twitter is not the entire world, but they were pretty vicious to each other this whole time. I don't think any Warren voters were really going to vote Biden. There are some. We are both examples of that. I go based on policy, not on who calls who a name. But there are those people. There are people that are very emotional and would never, ever vote for Bernie because they heard that report that he said a woman couldn't beat Trump.
Well, it was also the Cuba interview. Remember that? Where
he said that Castro at least was for education and
right.
had some other good policies.
With all the headlines talking about how he was praising Castro and he was praising what was going on in Cuba, people ran with it and people got really turned off to Bernie for it.
You're not going to win Florida. Well, that's for sure.
No.
And on top of that, Bernie's biggest support and Warren's least support comes from non-college educated men. Nothing wrong with that. I'm in that group. While Warren's biggest support group and Bernie's worst is college-educated women. So there's not, you're missing that big overlap that everyone seems to think there should be.
Well, and one thing that both candidates struggled with was getting votes from Black Americans. They just did not get enough traction with Black voters, where Joe Biden was just creaming them. Bernie was getting a much more diverse coalition than Warren was, because Warren's coalition was probably almost as bad as Pete Buttigieg's, where it was just all white people.
The wine moms.
Right.
She drinks beer. She's okay in my book.
Where at least Bernie was able to do really well with the Latinx voters, but that didn't do him much good outside of Arizona.
So then we kind of move to the end of the race. March 5th, only 2 days after Super Tuesday, Warren drops out. So now you should have this big progressive coalition behind Bernie, right? He still has a chance. Poll numbers aren't looking great. He's already getting passed by Biden at this point. March 10th, his last chance. He's got to win Michigan. He could win Washington. He could win North Dakota. And he's still in it. What happens? Biden wins Idaho, Michigan, Missouri, Mississippi, and Washington. Sanders wins only North Dakota, effectively ending the race.
And for what it's worth, even though we were pretty much done with, Biden won Wisconsin too. He creamed Bernie in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Bernie didn't drop out immediately at that point, but mathematically he had no choice.
Right.
And let's not forget this whole trying to split the progressives over Bernie and Warren is actually a Trump propaganda talking point. Trump tweeted, "Bernie Sanders is out. Thank you to Elizabeth Warren. If not for her, Bernie would have won almost every state on Super Tuesday. This ended just like the Democrats and the DNC wanted, same as the crooked Hillary fiasco. The Bernie people should come to the Republican Party. Trade." He knows this would just help him.
He's playing progressives, and he's playing people who are just typical political hobbyists who don't know anything outside of just what they see on Facebook and Twitter.
Don't fall for it.
Do not be a useful idiot. But we can talk about Joe Biden. I understand the idea of people not wanting to be shamed. They want to vote for something, not against anything. I can empathize with that, and I get it. So let's talk about Joe Biden, and let's see how he compares to what's happening right now.
So what are the core policies of the modern progressive movement? What are the big things that the progressive movement wants to accomplish that have been proposed?
We have Medicare for All, some kind of public funding for healthcare. We have tuition-free college, some kind of environmental responsibility, whether it's the Green New Deal or something similar, better economic equality, where you have trying to close the wealth gap, or at least trying to raise minimum wage and try to get wealthier people to pay more in taxes. At least that's what stuff I want.
Yep.
And I'm a progressive, so I'm hoping that's what other progressives want too.
Seems to me.
Good.
So everything that we're getting from Joe Biden is coming from joebiden.com. Trump doesn't really have a formal policy.
Nope.
So you kind of got to dig around and look at what he's tweeting and look at what other people around him are saying.
Couldn't look at the 2020 RNC either for a platform.
No. So on healthcare, things that Joe Biden has committed to doing: reduce the age of Medicare enrollment, the automatic enrollment, from 65 to 60. This gives millions of Americans coverage that wouldn't otherwise have it. Anyone who does not have healthcare otherwise, when they turn 60, will get Medicare. It's not a lot. It's not amazing, but it is progress. It is something. It is coverage for people that need it, that wouldn't otherwise have it. He wants to give a paid public option, not great, again, like Medicare. So have something that you can buy that is a publicly funded option available to everyone.
That would ultimately be cheaper than the private plans.
Right. And this is something that is available in some states, not here in Wisconsin, because Scott Walker was our governor at the time where we could have enrolled in the public option, but this would give it to everyone. Part of that is the Biden plan will repeal the existing law explicitly barring Medicare from negotiating lower prices with drug corporations.
And let's not forget where Biden's going to reverse the Trump administration's all-out assault on women's right to choose.
Yeah. You want Planned Parenthood? He'll restore funding for Planned Parenthood that currently it's just barely holding on because every Republican constantly hammering away on Planned Parenthood. They're selling baby parts. They want to abort your baby. They're coming for you in your sleep.
So then let's look at Trump's plan. Cool. That was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Step 1, abolish Obamacare because it's got Obama's name. I don't like Obama.
Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. Profit for me only, not for anyone else.
So in 2015, while he was running for president the first time, he said on CNN he would repeal Obamacare and replace it with something terrific. And on Sean Hannity's radio show, he said the replacement would be something great. This year, he's promised an Obamacare replacement plan 5 times, and the plan is always said to be just a few weeks away. Never happened.
Nope.
We have no idea what his healthcare plan is. He's been talking about it for 5 years now. It's not here. It's never going to happen.
Because they don't want one.
And this is, let's all keep in mind, that despite the fact that we are currently in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic, he has done nothing to expand healthcare to the estimated 27 million Americans who've lost access to their health insurance, either losing their jobs or being the family members of someone who's lost their job. He has done nothing. And one thing that he has done, the payroll tax freeze, which is temporary and very nebulous if he even has the power to do that, would in fact cut funding for Medicare and Social Security.
So that's healthcare.
Yeah, so far, I gotta
that's the
say,
tip of the iceberg.
I gotta say, I like the Biden plan better.
I gotta say, these look exactly the same to me. I'm gonna be honest. Well, let's look at my favorite thing, education. Biden's plan for education includes a COVID-19 response for an immediate cancellation of a minimum of $10,000 of federal student loan debt. More generally, he plans on making public colleges and universities, as well as private historically black colleges and universities and minority serving institutions, tuition-free for all families with incomes below $125,000.
Yes, please.
Yes.
That is a lot of people.
Yes. That's exactly what most progressives want. On top of that, he plans on forgiving all undergraduate tuition-related federal student debt from 2- and 4-year public colleges and universities and private HBCUs and MSIs for debt holders earning up to $125,000. So we literally have student loan forgiveness now too.
Yeah, to all but the uber rich, which again, I agree with the idea that even the rich should profit from the plans that they're paying for, but this is at least something.
And then on top of that, their plan also includes providing 2 years of community college or other high-quality training programs without debt for any person looking to earn and improve their skills.
So this includes also adults wishing to improve their ability to get a better job.
Right, talking about more things like trade programs, tech schools, apprenticeships, things like that, which we desperately need right now.
And that's the one thing I think, out of all of these that we've talked about in education, that he would be able to get through
Right.
pretty easily. The other two things, is there the political will? Is he going to be able to do it? That's debatable. But he's at least talking about it as things that he would like to do. You're not going to get that same commitment, or at least even wondering about it, talking about it from Trump.
Well, and the other thing you need to think about too is, okay, let's say that, sure, anyone can just promise whatever they want. That's a politician trope. Give me one good reason why Bernie Sanders would have done a better job getting this in than Biden would. There would be no difference. Bernie would have been stonewalled just as much as Biden. So if Biden doesn't get it, it would have been the exact same result under Bernie. And it's not either of theirs fault.
What about the Trump Education Freedom Plan, which was just in his last State of the Union?
I just cringed when you said freedom.
Of course, it's got the word freedom in it.
Oh, God. Okay.
So this is a $5 billion Betsy DeVos Ted Cruz plan, allowing individuals or corporations to contribute to a private scholarship organization instead of paying taxes. Money can be given to private religious schools, which means they're able to discriminate against gay and trans students.
And also teach religious doctrine.
Yeah, you want a science class to be, the earth is 6,000 years old, science is fake. If you want to know something, read the Bible. Then this is a great plan.
Then you're probably not progressive, though.
Probably not.
And you're probably not listening to us.
It creates a shortfall in public school funding, so that $5 billion has to come from somewhere.
Well, I was saying and shortfall's putting it lightly.
Right. I mean, $5 billion is a hell of a shortfall.
Right.
Instead of going to public schools through taxes, it would be going to this private scholarship organization who can give it to whoever they want, who's going to be in charge of oversight, and who's going to pay for that oversight. Again, this is not a public school plan. This is a let's destroy public schools and privatize education.
Right.
And you can tell it's Betsy DeVos because that's what she's about. She owns private schools. She is a billionaire. She could spend this $5 billion herself if she wanted to. Instead, what do the rich do? They get the government to do their bidding for them.
And that should be the end-all argument right there. Just the fact that Betsy DeVos is going to continue being the education secretary.
Yeah.
What more argument do you need?
And the only other education plan that you can find is the latest budget proposal cut billions of dollars from the student loan program. So that's fun.
Ugh.
As always, Trump doesn't really have much of a plan there.
Freedom.
But it's got the word freedom.
It's got freedom in it, and it makes me happy.
Now let's talk about energy.
Sure. So for Biden's plan with energy, his plan includes to ensure the U.S. achieves a 100% clean energy economy and reaches net zero emissions no later than 2050. On day one, Biden will sign a series of new executive orders with unprecedented reach that will go well beyond the Obama-Biden administration platform and put us on the right track. Well,
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. Okay. If there's a criticism we can have of Biden right now, here's a great time to talk about it.
So he wants to go 100% clean energy by 2050, which he'll be long gone at that point. Who knows what'll happen? It's not fast enough. I get all that. But he does talk about the Green New Deal being a good framework in his energy plan. He seems to be 100% committed. Climate change is real. Let's get it fixed. He's all for clean energy, getting rid of fossil fuels, and he will get us back into the Paris Climate Accord.
Again, something that liberals and progressives really want and have been talking about since Trump got us out of it.
If you want to read more about his energy policy, you can go to joebiden.com. There was a lot more that I didn't include here because it was really kind of nebulous stuff.
I was nebulous and vague.
And it had a lot to do with just making jobs through energy initiatives.
But that's something that I think we should really talk about, though, is the difference between, well, we'll get to there in a second, but the difference between Biden and Trump's idea of where we should put our jobs and infrastructure right now, where Biden believes we should put our investments towards clean energy, and Trump still believes in clean coal.
Beautiful clean coal.
The best. So, and on top of that, Biden also wants to halt fracking, at least to slow it down, where Trump wants to keep it going and, in fact, wants to make it much more prevalent.
Yeah. And again, when we talk about energy and Donald Trump, no actual policy proposals.
Just conspiracy theories.
So Trump's claims on wind turbines, which are quite amusing. They spew fumes into the air and, quote, they say the noise causes cancer. You told me that one, okay? unquote. And I swear this is what it says. Then he made circles with his hands and a noise with his mouth. Like he was a wind turbine. I'm giving you cancer right now. Ooh.
For listeners at home, Jason's actually miming what he's doing.
I am making circles with my hands.
He's getting into the character. I get it. I understand that. Good method acting.
My hair is also a mess right now. I haven't had a haircut in a while.
Yeah, but you actually have your own hair.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't have giant bald spots I'm covering up yet. He has also tried to stop the Scottish government from building a wind farm off the coast of Aberdeen, which could be seen from his golf course there. The wind farm was completed in 2018, we'll be happy to note. And in February of 2019, Trump's golf course was ordered to pay the Scottish government's legal bills from the case. Yay, Scotland.
And finally, he also promoted offshore drilling, with the exception of Florida, where he coincidentally owns seaside property.
You can drill everywhere you want, but leave Florida alone. I've got a nice view there. I don't need to see the drilling rigs. But anywhere else, especially Alaska and the Arctic, which he was actually stopped from drilling by a federal judge.
Now, here's the good one, right? Economic equality. This is where all the progressives that I know talk about how Biden's just another conservative hack. That's all he is, right? Well, let's talk about that. Biden plans to raise the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. Super hardcore conservative there, I guess. On top of that, Kamala Harris proposed raising the corporate income tax rate from 21% to 35% and imposing a 0.2% financial tax rate on stock trades and a 0.1% tax rate on bond trades as a candidate. And this is all from the Tax Foundation.
That's completely rolling back the Trump tax cut.
Right. And these are great moves forward. Like, we should be very happy with these things. Sure, does it not go up to, what was it that people want, like up to like 40 or 50% tax rates?
We'll get there.
Oh, right, but like that would never happen in a million years.
No, we're going to do it. Eat the rich.
Sounds great.
And as president, Biden said he will repeal the Taft-Hartley provisions that allow states to impose right-to-work laws. So very pro-union there.
Right. And even more so, he plans on increasing the federal minimum wage to $15.
Which is the Bernie Sanders proposal.
Yes, the whole fight for 15. This is a very progressive economic platform. Much more aggressive than Obama's.
Now, what does Trump say about a federal minimum wage hike? Sometimes he says he's for it. Sometimes he says he's against it. I've found numerous quotes that would indicate both. I have no idea.
I mean,
he hasn't done it. He's had 4 years.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's probably better than Joe Jorgensen's plan for probably just abolishing the minimum wage.
Oh, wait. Just wait. You got to keep reading, buddy.
No, I don't want to. I'm scared now.
He has taken credit in the last State of the Union address for a 3.2% low-wage worker pay increase, despite the fact that that came exclusively from states that have increased their minimum wage since he's been in office. There was a 3.8% increase in those states, but a drop of 0.5% in states that did not increase their minimum wage. He actually said it was 16% increase, but that doesn't adjust for inflation. So it's actually like 3.6 when you bring it down.
Sweet.
And it's not even as high as it has been in other years because, of course, he's a liar. And to your other point, his top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, called for an unlimited minimum wage.
Okay,
which is
what's
getting
that?
rid of the minimum wage.
Christ. Let's pay workers what we value them as. Nothing.
Yeah. And he said, no, the wages will go up because they'll be able to pay workers whatever they want. Without the government imposing that artificial minimum wage, they'll actually pay people more because that's how that works, right?
Right, exactly. If you give them the option to pay them less, they'll actively pay them more.
Yep.
Stupid libertarian talking point.
So in 2017, Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So we actually have some policy to talk about here. The law created a single corporate tax rate of 21%. From previously 35%, which is a
massive
cut. If you're an individual making over $38,701, your tax rate is higher than any corporation in the United States. That is insane.
That really pisses me off.
It should. It should piss
really
everyone
makes me angry.
And the law cut corporate tax rates permanently but only individual tax rates until 2025.
Jason, why are we... Oh, my God. I forgot like almost about half of these. This is making me angry again.
Now you're remembering
I'm
this.
remembering now. Moving forward, Trump also scaled back the alternative minimum tax and estate tax, as well as reducing the taxes levied on pass-through income, 70% of which goes to the highest earning 1%. It does not close the carried interest loophole, which benefits professional investors, and it scraps the individual mandate, likely driving up premiums and making health insurance unaffordable for millions.
I don't make enough money to even know what half of what that was is.
Yep.
So we can safely say it benefits the rich and does nothing for most of us other than raise our health insurance costs, because now it's no longer law that you have to have health insurance. So those are just what we identified as the core policies of the more progressive candidates.
Right, and we're talking specifically policy here. Now, we're not talking about character. We're not talking about who has more dementia. We're talking specifically about what they plan on doing while they're in office, or what they already did while they're in office. So that's not even including all the other points like immigration, where Trump constantly tried to have an assault on DACA.
And put kids in cages.
And put more kids in cages.
Separated families at the border.
Which is still happening.
Put people in jail for trying to claim asylum, which is illegal.
Or talking about Trump's responses to the BLM protests and the marches. When the looting starts, the shooting starts type of rhetoric. His completely crap record on LGBTQ plus rights. If you have any trans or gay and lesbian friends, do not vote for anyone besides Joe Biden.
Do you want to live in a democracy, or do you want to live in a fascist dictatorship? You see the way Trump is attacking the post office, the way the Republicans dismantled the Voting Rights Act, and Trump refuses to do anything about it. We are heading in a direction that resembles a dictatorship. With every tweet, with every attack on an American business, with every day that goes by where our president continues to break laws and get away with it, pardoning his friends, pushing the Justice Department to drop their cases against people who are loyal to him.
Like I said earlier, I forgot half the things that he did that made me so angry because it happens so often. He is a real-life gish gallop of a president.
He's been impeached once, and he could have been impeached a dozen times.
Right. But I mean, this isn't even just him, though, right? It's like I still hear all the time where it's, yeah, I don't like Trump. He's kind of a dick. He's not a great president. But I like all the winners he surrounds himself with.
All the people who are in jail?
Well, at least those who aren't.
All the people that should be.
Not even including all the people who he put into offices who had records saying they want to dismantle the very offices they are now running.
The EPA. There's so much that you could go on about his cabinet members and people that he's put in administrative positions who have no business being there. How many people have had to leave their offices because they've been found in ethics violations?
Right.
And that's not even getting to the Supreme Court. He's already had 2 justices on the Supreme Court that are both terrible, and they're both young. They're in their 50s. We have currently not just Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who everyone's aware she's 87. She has her cancer returned. She's not going to make it through 4 more years. But you also have Stephen Breyer, the other Clinton appointee, who's 82 years old. He could easily not make another term. And then you have 2 conservative justices who could both retire and be replaced by younger conservatives, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, who are both in their 70s.
Those will clearly not die because we live in the worst hell possible.
But they could imagine Trump gets 4 more years. He gets to replace 4 more justices with young conservatives. That gives him 6. That's a majority.
It's not even just young conservatives. It's young radical federalist conservatives.
Yeah, originalists, whatever you want to call them. That gives 20 to 30 years of control of the Supreme Court to Trump appointees. That is horrible, and it's far-reaching, and it'll not only affect you, it'll affect your kids. That should be, like, number 1, what we need to avoid.
But actually, I would argue that the lower courts are even more important because he's been doing it at such a rapid pace. If for those who aren't aware, Trump has currently appointed 194 federal judges to the bench. That is 24% of all active federal judges right now, with plenty more vacancies currently open. 85% are white, more than any president since George H.W. Bush.
So if you care about the justice system, we need to reform the justice system for racial justice You're not getting it with this president.
No. And this is where a lot of action does take place. And the fact that we're putting tons of highly unqualified, deemed by multiple legal institutions, including the Bar Association, on the federal bench is a huge problem for us. And that's, if anything, this is going to be Trump's legacy. It's the fact that he's going to stack the courts that will end up doing so much damage for us for decades.
If anybody wants to know why you should vote Democrat over Republican, just look at the history of federal judge appointments by president and the percentage of female judges and the percentage of minority judges. It is startling.
Now, we don't have it in front of us, but wasn't it like, I think Trump appointed one Latino judge, I think one Asian judge, and like that was it?
Yeah, I don't know, 85% white, and that's so much higher than Obama and Clinton.
Right.
So I'm not going to vote for Trump because he's horrible and is going to bring about the apocalypse. So I'm just not going to vote as a progressive. I don't really like Joe Biden. He doesn't give me enough. What would that do? Well, I think that would just show the Democratic Party that the younger people, the progressives, they don't vote. When it matters, they had a chance with Bernie. He was leading. They didn't vote. They had a chance to replace Trump. He's terrible. They didn't vote. All that does is show them that at the end of the day, those progressives, they talk a big game. They're all over Twitter. They're all over YouTube, but they don't actually come out and vote. Not only that, you're not voting for any down ballot candidates, some of whom are probably more progressive. You're just wasting the one chance you have of making your voice heard in our country. And it's what they want. It's what the Republican Party wants.
That's not even the whole story, though. If you don't vote, they're going to, again, bank on future elections. Oh, okay, well, I guess we went too far left this time. Let's go further to the right and forget this whole idea of having any type of statewide, Medicare plan to begin with. Let's just go back to Obamacare.
Let's go John Kasich next.
Right. I mean, what you're going to do is actually have an inverse reaction for more elections to come, because they're going to think that you can't be trusted to vote. So why should they placate to you? And on top of that, this is exactly why Bernie Sanders is not a Bernie or bust bro, right? This is why that Bernie has been endorsing Biden and being fully supportive in everything he's doing and working with the Biden campaign, because he knows how politics works in America and he knows how to play the political game. By simply not voting, you're not making a statement, you're not taking this grand stand that you think you are, you're just giving more power to the other side, because that's how our system is set up.
Okay, you convinced me. I'll vote, but I'm going to vote third party. That'll show them.
Go screw yourself. No, let's look at the third party candidates. Here's the deal. I'm not voting for Joe Biden just because he's not Trump and we need to get Trump out of office. I'm voting for Joe Biden because he's the most qualified candidate who goes with my values the most, who will be on my ballot come November. So let's start with the Green Party then. Howie Hawkins. I'm going to be honest, a lot of his platform as a progressive, I agree with. It's pretty damn progressive. Their strategy right now is actually to be the current Bernie on the ballot, and they run on a socialist economy. They want a Green New Deal as well, and they have a lot of good other features that progressives do like.
What are their chance of winning, Joe?
Frickin' nothing.
Oh, come on, Howie Hawkins.
No, because here's what pisses me off so much.
See all those honk for Howie bumper stickers?
Here's what pisses me off so much, though. I am so done with the idea that we can have any person with no experience waltz right into the Oval Office and just assume they're going to know how things work. Why is it that experience matters for every freaking job in America except for our own government? Howie Hawkins has never held an elected office. He's tried 24 times and has lost every single time. He has no idea what it's like to hold an elected position outside of his own party.
Well, you know what they say, 25th time's the charm.
Shut up.
Okay. How about the Libertarian candidate?
Shut up again.
As all libertarians are, Joe Jorgensen is against having a government, but wants to run the government. She would like to privatize public schools, privatize healthcare. So far, we're kind of the Trump platform. She's against equal pay for the same job. Well, we'll pay her 70% of what the president normally gets paid then. Against stay-at-home orders to prevent the spread of COVID. Let the market decide who lives or dies.
Bootstrap yourself to healing with COVID.
She's okay letting employers discriminate based on employers' religious beliefs. So sounds like she's a Republican. She's against drug regulation, so that's something. And of course, she's against the raise in minimum wage. I would guess she would probably be on the Kudlow, as you said, plan of having no federal minimum wage at all.
And finally, which makes me the angriest, she was against Trump's impeachment.
Again, sounds very Republican to me.
She claimed
She should have run for Congress.
She had an opinion, she just wasn't present.
Tulsi Gabbard?
Yeah. Let's call these third-party candidates what they are. Unqualified to run for president. That's it. I can find things I like with both candidates. I do, right? I love the idea of having Howie's Green New Deal plan.
Drugs.
Right. Well, and speaking of drugs, I love the idea that Joe is complete for legalization of marijuana. Great.
And heroin.
Great.
And meth.
Great.
I mean, I'd try it.
Okay. But that does not mean that they should be our president. So if you want to vote third party, and Jason, I think you would agree with me, I have no problem having more options on the ticket.
You know, I'm big for third party for your down ballot races. Well, not really for the presidency. You're just not going to get anywhere voting third party.
No, I'm talking like in a utopian world, like hypothetical utopian world, like not pragmatic yet.
Right. In a functional governmental system.
Yes.
If now is not the right time to try to revolutionize the system and vote third party, what can we do?
What we need to focus on right now is the fact that what we're doing is working. Bernie Sanders came so close to being the Democratic nominee for president twice with a majority socialist platform, unapologetically socialist platform. Some of the most popular politicians right now in America are outspoken Democratic socialists. Biden's platform right now is one of the furthest or most progressive platforms we've seen in decades. It's working. So what we need to do is keep working on it. By simply abstaining yourself from the system and not fighting with us, you're going to break that and throw away all the work that's been done over the last few decades.
I think if Trump loses and he loses big, that's at least going to show the Republicans that his brand of populism is not sustainable. We might have been fooled the first time. All of the populists and people who wanted to vote for the political outsider could have fallen for it 4 years ago. But now we know who he is.
Yep.
If he loses in a landslide, that will be the end of his brand of politics. Because it will show the Republican Party that does not win.
And that doesn't mean that we have to stop either, right? I mean, I'm sure you and I are going to vote for Biden, but that doesn't mean that we're full-on Biden lovers. The minute that we're in office, we're going to call him out. And I think we should.
We need to do what the Tea Party did. They got a bunch of candidates into the House and into the Senate, and they built coalitions. They built caucuses, and they caused a lot of pain for the Republican Party because they knew if they were running a candidate that was too centrist, he would get primaried by a Tea Party candidate and lose. That's exactly what the progressives need to do in the Democratic Party.
And what they are doing right now, right?
You just had the recent victories of Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman. We just had the primary victory for Ed Markey, who beat a Kennedy for public office in Massachusetts for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
These are progressives showing that people will come out to vote. Now, they didn't win in every race they were in, and you won't, but we need to keep building that progressive base in Congress.
Politics takes decades for plans to develop. I think that's one thing that we need to realize as well. When you look at the Tea Party movement that you talked about earlier, that was since the early 2000s, if not a little bit before that. So they took 20 years to develop the power we have now. And now we have literal QAnon conspiracy theorists that will be in Congress because those people...
See episode 3.
See the last episode. Because they primaried their opponent to the right and they won. Don't be dumber than the fascists. Don't be dumber than the radical right wing. Be smart, learn how our system works, and learn how to gain power in our country.
Burn it to the ground.
No. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. No, I don't want to say this. It's a common trope right now where you're seeing lots of progressives and lots of leftists.
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 Better than right-cist.
Yeah, you happy with yourself now?
Yep. So if we look at the real explicitly, and he will get us back to the parrot, and we'll bring about the apocalypse, the postal apocalypse.
Much more, much more. I lost it. I just.